Jess. I'm joined by the wonderful Courage and Momo to break down that last series. And what a good series it was. Of course, it goes all the way to a Game 5. We thought it was going to be a hotly contested game, and it was just that. But Jack, I'm a little upset because obviously you were hosting for Trading Shots, and that result, you know, that kind of means Maven may have been right after all.
Maven's been killing it with the predictions. I'm telling you that right now. His number one with that EnVy lineup and how well they're going to be or how successful they're going to be, it remains true. I do know we're going to talk a little about the series, but this is awesome because no matter what, whether LG win or lose later today, we know that tomorrow's matchup between EnVy and LG will be the battle for the top spot in Division B. The final matchup for those two teams in the week. It's going to be a great way to end our week 2 of Division B.
Definitely will. Battle of the Titans, that's for sure. But we'll go ahead and break down this series first. Of course, it didn't start well for Splyce whatsoever, did it, Phil?
Oh, no.
It was a solid start from EnVy.
Yeah, I mean, straight away off the get-go, it was the fact that Temp, I just want to highlight this, Temp starts 5-0, and remember that because we go into the next half point a little later on. It's the streaks. They get the streaks, they utilize the streaks. I think Chance may have said the one downfall is they maybe overused them in a sense, but it was just a slay-heavy game. Splyce got outslayed by 34. A large majority, nearly half of that was Bance. A very, very poor game 1. And my concern here was yesterday they started on St. Marie hardpoint. Bance didn't have a great game, and it all fell apart. And I thought that may be the case for this whole series. When game 1 ended, I was like, this is going to be a 3-0.
I mean, looking at this, they win on every single hill. Yes, it's expected when it's 250 to 75, but when you're getting a 29-10 performance out of Temp and you're winning across every single hill, we saw the flurry of streaks brought in. Streaks arguably best on St. Marie over any map we play in competitive Call of Duty. It only helps you further build that lead. It's useful on every hill to break a hard point. And it just showed right there. It snowballs out of control really quick.
Definitely does. EnVy 1-0 up in the series. We then go into a search and destroy. And Phil, I'm going to be honest, I kind of was similar to you, thinking, all right, well, this is probably where it's all going to fall apart now for the Europeans. We saw it happen yesterday. But no, signs of life from Splyce.
Yeah, really, really nice couple of rounds to start things off from Splyce. I will say again, Mad Cat wins 2 1v1s against Slasher, really important 1v1s. It kind of pushing it to the final steps of this. Tommy, I think, picks up a triple in round number 8. And there's kind of just moments of individual skill, I will say, from each of the Splyce members. But overall, a very, very solid search and destroy. And my concern was, you know, how do they bounce back from such a beating on the hard point? And they did it with 3 rounds very, very quickly.
And I will say, in this best of 5, I think that this is exactly how Splyce needed to give themselves the chance to beat EnVy. Right? Is taking this game 2. We knew how good EnVy have looked in hardpoint, especially. You think, well, if they can take the game 2 and game 3, they can at least give themselves a chance in the game 5, which is exactly what they did. But this is just an example of Splyce taking care of business. I love that Momo brought up that point of they won their clutch 1v1 swing rounds. If they don't do that, this is obviously a much different outcome in this game.
Yeah.
Right. Mad Cat goes big twice against Slasher in those 1v1s, and ultimately, to your point, Jack, it is a turning point there in the game. There are a quick glance at individual players. Obviously, Slasher goes 7-6, Jared 9-5. A big performance from him, drops a 1.8. So at that point, series, of course, tied 1 map apiece. We go into the CTF, and I mean, I honestly thought EnVy was going to win that CTF just based off what we saw in the first respawn, but it wasn't the case.
And then we were a couple minutes in, and we were already seeing just how fast-paced this one was. I was watching it backstage with some of the League Ops guys, and I'm looking at the score, I'm going, does that say 8-2 at the end of it? Like, I just couldn't believe my eyes. But I think this is a perfect example, and I love that the first kind of clip is from Jerd. This shows what Jerd brings to this team, especially on a map like London Docks CTF, the unrelenting pressure. I don't think I've, A, casted a match with this many scores so far in CTF and Call of Duty World War II, and B, Momo, the amount of pulls in general that Splyce had was just unreal.
Yeah, I think you put the point forward there of just saying with Jerd they have that pressure, and it wasn't necessarily him. You can see Bance 12-5, and again, this is why I wanted to reiterate from game 1. Bance had a very poor start. Sometime with Bance it does kind of lead to a poor series. He nipped that in the bud after a very strong search and destroy from a team, and then puts an individual play on, which is fantastic. He ends the first half 14-8. They're 4-2 up after the first half. They're looking at each other, probably thinking, you know, this series is ours. We can take this. And then it's 5-2, 6-2, 7-2, 8-2. This is where Splyce, that's just confidence building.
Yep.
The problem is obviously is that hard point next, and we know obviously they've had their troubles, and what a great game it was. But as well, Classic individually, it was a very poor map. There's no beating around the bush there. It just wasn't a great great map for him.
A .39 he finishes with, as opposed to Bance a 1.64. I mean, you just hear those two numbers alone, and you could expect it to be a pretty high-scoring game in favor of Splyce, and that was the case. 8-2 victory. Splyce 2-1 up. And then to your point again, Phil, you're like, all right, they're getting a little bit of momentum now. Can they bring it through into the hard point? But once again, wasn't the case.
No, I mean, the hard point when it went to Gibraltar, and the point I made at the very start of this breakdown was Temp starting 5-0 on game 1. He starts the exact same on game 2. It's 5-0. It's hill time. It's streaks. It's that kind of moment where you go into a hard point and you're like, come on, guys, let's not start slow like we did on map 1, and straight away, you've given them time, you've given them streaks, you've given them the rotation. I will say, it was completely different than map 1. They didn't let it snowball out of control. They didn't get outslayed by 34. Yep. It was actually half that of 17, but again, there was very individual moments, and a player which we don't credit enough is Classic. It just played the clip there, obviously even bringing in the streaks, but he made 2 kills back cave, which pretty much got his team 50 points on that first road hill. And honestly, I think that was the difference maker in this map in particular.
And I was taking some notes here, and I think Josh, really made some jokes last week from Red Reserve about how much I love counting up kills, but I had written down actually that, sorry, it's on my page too, that actually it was like, what, 50-plus kills the difference in the 2 hard points in this series between 2 top-tier teams.
That's a lot.
Envy, they'll get the kills and they'll win the map, right? They're not going to throw away. They're going to stay to their fundamentals even though they're out slaying. Classic, great to see him turn it around. Not only does he have the most hill time, but 32 kills at a 1.39. The guy looked very consistent in that game.
Yeah, one more point as well, which I really love what Envy do is when they smoke that long road, is when Splyce had the full control, they've rotated early, and you think this is where Splyce can really get 50, maybe 60 points. Classic, and I think someone else was just throwing smokes at the bridge. They push on over, they just sit there behind the tank, they're going back and forth, and it's just either they're contesting, they're putting pressure on, or they're just taking points away. At some points, they're actually getting points because some of Splyce are, in the turret window or out back. And you see really good strategy from Envy. Obviously, it'd be nice to see some other teams do that as well.
That's a perfect example of a hill where you are kind of content if you don't have those spawns just to contest and give up as little time as possible. And Envy did a good job of that.
They most definitely did. Series tied at 2-2. We then head into a game 5. We had feelings that this would honestly potentially go the distance. We knew it was going to be a great game, and it didn't disappoint whatsoever. But heading into it, Momo, were you confident for the Europeans?
I was. I mean, the Search and Destroy, I mean, Splyce in particular, they're very good at game 5s. I mean, not necessarily on the level of the likes of TK, but I always felt like this team could kind of clutch out here, especially with the likes of Tommy. They start very strong, 2-0, and then it just, they do one attackive round on B. Bit of an unfortunate 1v1 here with Slasher and Jerd. That could have been completely different, but I will say it just kind of started to slip away from them round by round. Slasher started to heat up, streaks came in. It's difficult, it really is.
There was one round that I think really stood out to everyone, and that was when Mad Cat was all the way in the back base. This one right here. They set up to have Mad Cat watch mid-beer. Temp is able to flood on through. Mad Cat tries to call it out. It's a free kill for Temp on one. He pinches the other. At that point, Splyce were in a 3-on-3, and they let one player collapse the entire setup. Look at that stream of Envy round wins. Slasher, again, big performance from him, 2.25. More and more people beginning to believe that he is the best player in Call of Duty World War II right now.
Another Game 5 loss for Splyce as well. They're going to be bitterly disappointed with that. But for EnVyUs, they stay undefeated. And to Jack's point at the very, very start of this whole segment now, we really get to find out, are they the real deal tomorrow when they play against LG for what will be top of the group? One of those two teams has to end with a loss. Which one will it be? Very, very excited for that one. But of course, still plenty of games still to come today. Up next, of course, Epsilon versus E United. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But